Hello everyone and welcome to the third part of this video series involving different forms of exploring linear relations in terms of the equations. One form we recall is the type where we have ax plus by plus c, which is equal to 0, where a, b, and c are numbers. A and b are pretty much coefficients of x and y respectively, and yc is a constant, and this side of the equation must be equal to 0. Now we have the other form, which is called the slope y-intercept form, and this actually has our regular expression, which is equal to y equals mx plus b, where m is known to be the slope of that line and b is considered to be the y-intercept. So looking at this information that we need here, we're going to apply it to this particular form of question that may come up, which is to be able to transform from a standard form, which is this format, into this format, which is y equals to mx plus b. So in here we see that if you're going to do that, we were able to accomplish that on our previous videos. Now in this video we're going to go in the other way, the other direction, which is going from this form. How are we going to transform into ax plus by plus c, which is equal to 0 as the standard form? So we have these ones here, which are the various questions, that for example a, b, and we have others as we see here, c and d. And what we notice is that the form mx plus b equals to y is actually consistent in the individual questions. That for example m here is -5 and our b here is +3. If you move on to b, we have m to be 6 and our m to be 6 and our b to be -1. And in here we have c to be a fraction, where our m is equal to 4/5 and our b to be equal to +2. And finally we have this particular fraction where we have our m to be equal to -3/5 and our b to be equal to +2/7. So looking at this here, how we're going to transform our given questions here into the standard form, which is ax plus by plus c equals to 0. One thing you need to recognize here is that first we need to make a to be positive values, and 2, we need to make a, b, and c to be not fractions. So we want a, b, and c to be whole numbers. That means whenever I have a denominator, I have to multiply all the coefficients and the constants by a factor of that denominator. So we're going to look at specific examples that involves fraction. Like for example, now looking at this question, we have y equals 4/5x plus 2, and what you notice here is that this particular equation is similar to what we know for the slope y-intercept form, where we have this to be y equals mx plus b. And what we're going to do here is to be able to transform these to ax plus by plus c is equal to 0, which means that I'll either move just y to the other side, for one side of the equation to be equal to 0, or I move these other two here, which is 4/5x to the other side of the equation and 2 over to the other side of the equation. And what that means is that by recognizing what we have here, we'll need to have a to be a positive value, and we want our A, B, and C to be not fractions. So we want to avoid fractions, which means that any denominator that we have in the fraction form will actually have to multiply that denominator value by everything in that particular equation. So looking at this right here, what we're going to do first is move our 4 over 5x to the other side of the equation, which means that I'm going to subtract 4 over 5x from both sides. So once we do that, what we have is that on this side of the equation we're going to have our y, and this y is going to be taken away from 4 over 5x, and this here will be equal to positive 4 over 5x minus 4 over 5x, and what we're left with on that other side of the equation is plus 2. So as a result of this, what we have is this cancelling this out, because 4 over 5x minus 4 over 5x is equal to 0, and what we're left on the left side of the equation is negative 4 over 5x plus y is equal to plus 2. So the next step here is to move our plus 2 from the right side over to the left side, and what that means is that we're going to subtract as well positive 2 from both sides, and what we have as a result is that minus 4 over 5x plus y, we're going to include our negative now because we're subtracting positive 2 from both sides, and on the other side of the equation we have our positive 2 minus 2. So on the right side of the equation we have this particular form, and what we're going to do is to subtract, and what we get as our answer on the right side is finally equal to 0. So that is our goal. Our goal is to be able to make one side of the equation to be equal to 0, and while the other side, that means we're going to move everything over to that other side of the equation. So what we have is a particular form that looks like ax plus by plus c is equal to 0. However, what we notice here is that our a, which is represented as negative 4 over 5 in this particular equation form, has a fraction, and the fraction denominator is 5, which means that in order for we to eliminate that fraction, we're going to multiply everything in this equation here by 5. That means that in this equation here I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by 5. So as a result of that, we're going to have 5, and we're going to put our brackets, and inside the bracket we're going to write our remaining equation, which is negative 4 over 5x plus y minus 2 is equal to 0. So as a result, I'm going to multiply 5 by this, I'm going to multiply 5 by y, I'm going to multiply 5 by negative 2, and I'm going to multiply 5 by 0. So this is called distributive properties, and what we have as a result is that put the multiplication, and multiplication over here, and as a result what we have here is 5 times negative 4 over 5 is 5 cancelling 5, and what we are left with is negative 4x plus we have 5 times y, which gives us 5y, and on this other side here we have our negative 2 times 5, which will give us negative 10, and in other side we have 5 times 0, which gives us 0. So we are done with the first part, and the second part is that our a has to be a positive value. So if I see a negative value where the coefficient of our x is negative, in this case is negative 4, to eliminate that negative, I'm going to multiply everything by negative 1. So it means that in this particular equation here, I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 1. So once we do just that, it means that what we're going to get here, let me move this down so I will have enough space to write everything down, is that we're going to put our brackets around the equation, and we're going to multiply negative 1 by everything inside the bracket. And what is inside the bracket? We have negative 4x plus 5y minus 10 equals to 0. So the same thing like what we did in the previous step, distributive properties, multiply negative 1 by negative 4x, multiply negative 1 by positive 5y, multiply negative 1 by negative 10, multiply negative 1 by 0. So by doing these distributive properties, what we get as a result is negative 4x times negative 1 will give us positive 4x, and the next one is negative 1 times positive 5y will give us negative 5y, and the next one is negative 1 times negative 10, which will give us positive 10, and the final one is negative 1 times 0, which will give us 0. So that is about it for the answer, which means that we are able to completely transform our equation, which is in the form of slope y-intercept form, into a standard form. In this case, what you remember is that we'll have to transform by moving everything over to one side of the equation to make the other side of the equation to be equal to 0. And once we do that, our next step is to make our fractions to become whole numbers for the coefficients of a, b, and c, which we did right at the next step. And the final step is, if we have a negative value for a, we have to change it into a positive value for a, which is what we did right here. So the goal at the end is to be able to fully convert our standard form from our slope y-intercept form. And I'm going to challenge you to actually go through this particular question, and the answers will be posted on your workspace. And also I challenge you to do this. This should be pretty easy. This doesn't involve fraction, but the last one here involves a constant that has a fraction, which in this case looks like your c. So all the same, please hit a comment down below. Let me hear your thoughts, and also any challenges that you may actually experience along every single step. By that way, we can talk to you all soon. All the same, stay smart and believe in yourselves.